We're back.
So we're back here. So could you explain a regular day, uh, like in the life out there? So like from the beginning of the day all the way to the end, regular.
Yeah, I'll just pull up the schedule we had quickly. Hey, um, so so there was like meditation and shit going on from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. But as I said, I didn't really go to that because it was way too early. I ended up going to that on the last day. So on that day, you would wake up at, and this was the regular schedule. You wake up at 4, and from 4 to 6, you have a combination of walking and sitting meditation. Then from 6 to 7, you have a combination of chanting and sitting meditation. So we would do this chanting in Pali, which is one of the oldest unwritten languages. It only has the oral form, but it's been written down in Sanskrit, which is another similar language. Both Pali and Sanskrit are like the two main languages that Buddhism was kind of spread in. So we'd have that from hour to 6 to 7, which is usually when I'd wake up, 6 in the morning to 7. And then breakfast, 7 to 8, and then an hour long like talk from 8 to 9, which would be on it would be on all different stuff, but generally there would be kind of Buddhist principles explained in different stories and contexts and stuff like that. And then it was another 2 hours meditation, and then at 11 to 12 was when they would eat lunch. And lunch was like the main meal of the day. Like, you don't have dinner here. The one of the precepts of the monks and the nuns is that they don't eat past 12. So they eat the big motherfucking lunch, and then just that's it until the next day. I can't remember if I mentioned that to you earlier, but
No, no,
yeah.
no.
And then so that was different to me as well, because obviously I was used to getting up after 12 and then eating all throughout the night. So I had to like figure out how to um yeah, eat a whole bunch at once at then. And then it was the middle of the day was kind of like you could relax and do what you want. Like you could, there was meditation scheduled, but we didn't have to go to it. So I didn't really go the majority of the time. I would just sit in my room and either read or walk around, because forest space is very nice. Go on walks and shit. And then yeah, until 7 o'clock at night there was more chanting, and then another lecture, and then at 8 o'clock pretty much just go to bed. I'll go to bed like a couple hours later though, because it'll take me a bit longer. But yeah, that was the day. It was pretty regimented in terms of like when you would meditate, but the only main things that you had to go to was the actual like talks and the chanting and stuff like that, where they had the monks and the nuns there.
So there was other people there,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
and who were doing the exact same retreat. Were you able to see, first of all, how many people were there? And then secondly, were you able to see without speaking change in other people throughout the trip?
It's interesting. There was a solid. I think there was at least like 50 people all up on the kind of whole retreat area. Um,
Wow.
some people you could kind of see people going through changes, but at the same time, like it's weird. Like I remember overhearing on the very last day, people could talk, but I wouldn't really talk to that many people. I was still kind of like figuring things out. But I could overhear other people talking about how they was like seeing other people having hard days and stuff like that, like beyond the extent that I was noticing it. So I think that I was very like in my head a lot of the time while I was there, that it was not allowing me to notice the other people so much. And that was kind of like a problem as well, just in my life, like being too much in my head, not being able to fully connect with the other people around me.
So we've talked, you and I, about what the face tattoo has done for you and the way that people seem to judge you a little bit more straight off the bat before getting to know you.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to explain yourself just kind of coming into a situation. Did you feel any type of judgment while you were there from anyone?
I did. Hey, and I don't really know. I think it's probably like all self-imposed judgment as well, because I don't think these people were judging me, and it doesn't make sense that they would be, because it's like a fucking Buddhist retreat, like pretty fucking open people. But at the same time, yeah, I felt a kind of like, I don't know, just like not meant to be there type of feeling. But again, I don't necessarily think that was being put on me. I think maybe I've been putting that on myself.
Hating that. Yeah.
Mm.
Like people have become a little bit more open-minded now that you see it as a more regular basis. But for example, like when XXX got his tree tattoo, a tree tattoo right here, I just remember like it was such a big deal. Like people were talking about it, like
Yeah.
why would anybody do that to themselves? Like blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah.
So it's become more accepted.
Yeah.
Maybe it was in your head.
Yeah, legit. I think it was.
And while you were there, so you said you guys had three different times where you guys would actually be doing lectures or they would be talking, but
Yeah.
nobody else was talking. I was a little confused because you said that you overheard conversations. Was it the monks who were
No.
saying?
I overheard conversation at the very end. So on the very last day, you were allowed to speak.
Oh.
Yeah. Or
Did
like
you go up to anyone and talk?
the very last day, like after lunch, we were the first other day. No. I spoke to like one or two people. One person came up to me. Just a couple of people came up to me, but it was very brief.
Was the conversations on a shallow or a deeper level?
To be honest, I was expecting these people to be a bit more like talking a bit deeper, but they were just kind of talking about like I don't know, it's hard to really say. They were just kind of talking about how the experience was for them. So I guess in a sense that is deeper, but it didn't really feel like we were touching anything deep, you know? Yeah.
Was it like, do you feel like in those situations when, I know that you like the deep conversations, do you feel like you have to initiate it a little bit more? Or do you feel like you wait till they initiate?
I think that's the thing. I usually I'm not like gonna go into it with someone unless I can see they have that spark already, because it's something that, like, if you just start talking about those things with someone and then then I'm just used to people not really wanting to be talking about those things. So I and just in general, like, I'm never anyone to talk to someone first. Like, I'll be quiet until someone talks to me, and then I'll like listen to them for a while and to judge that I can be safe around them, or like even trust that I can speak about these things with them. So I think that was probably more of it. Like, I'm sure these people would have been ready to talk about these things, but because they didn't come out and jump straight into the deep end first, then I was a bit afraid to, which is something I need to overcome, really. Like, I've noticed, this is a simple like thing I've noticed that kind of relates to this. Like, if you walk around like with a big smile on your face and just like whenever you see someone for the first time, say you're walking through the city and you smile at them, the chance of them smiling back at you is like, I don't know a percentage, but it's so much higher than if you're just looking at them like this, you know? If you initiate that thing, it's like almost human nature to kind of reciprocally give it back. And so in the same vein, if I'm open in a conversation, or if you're open in a conversation to the extent that you're willing to dive into the deep end, then if they're ready for it, they should reciprocate. It seems like the kind of path I need to move forward, instead of being more like tentative of who I should talk to, because it really doesn't matter, I guess. We're all people.
One thing, so in regards to like you being a little bit more reserved, where do you think that reserved nature, or in a way like slight, is it maybe like trust issues too, with conversations? Where do you think in like throughout your life, where did that stem from, or have you always been that type of kid?
Yeah, I've always been that type of kid. I was I mean, I think it's, my just early experiences led me to be like that. Like, I was only child. My parents split up like when I was just turned 2, and I was like very like between them from that point forward. So I never really had kind of like a continuous space with either of them, nor interacting with people like normal kind of socialization that a kid goes through, I guess. And I think a lot of that has to do with just kind of feeling ease around people and being able to talk to them, which I've just kind of never naturally had. Which is also part of why been led to express everything I can through the music, because I find it's so difficult to express in the kind of normal social way.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely know, like, as an artist, if you really go through your discography, like, I feel like if you just have one, or if you watch a few Raz Mundane videos and you go back and listen to your music, you're able to piece together a better version of who you are actually as a person, which is kind of crazy, which I honestly think is a great accomplishment, to be able to transmit yourself so well throughout music that it will actually piece together like who you are, or
I'm
to an
glad it comes
extent
through
how
like that.
you see yourself. No, yeah, it's a big achievement. One thing as a suggestion, maybe you would like to try it, is I used to do this back in the day. Is
Mm.
I would go into a sauna. I would call them sauna talks.
Hmm?
So I'd go into a sauna, and there'd be like some random person up there, and we're just quiet. Like I don't know if you ever been to a sauna, but you just
Yeah,
sit
it's
there all
usually
like
quite.
serious, sweat dripping down. I just go. I don't even ask their name. I just go, "Hey, man." I was like, "Hey," and I always ask him like, "Could you tell me?" Like I'm really into. I would say I'm really into romance. I'm really into like the romantic pursuits. Could you tell me, the big love story of your life? And every single time, Raz, every single time when you came at that approach, they always talk. Because I
Really?
feel like people want to talk, but no one ever asks the right questions.
Wow.
Like
And that's
like
like not a
sometimes
small
like
question as well. So that really surprises me that people respond.
oh, all the time. I never
Really?
got one person to be like, bro, I don't feel comfortable, like I don't even know you. They're just like,
Wow.
"Oh yeah, man, blah," and they'll go on the tangent. And then you just listen to them and
Shit.
like it just kind of makes sense though, cuz like don't you wish sometimes somebody would come up to you and ask you a deep question that you've been
No
wanting to talk
shit.
about?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense when you put it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually like I think if you just come at it with actual interest, like that's why I start off saying
Mm.
like I'm interested in these topics.
Yeah.
Like I'm just curious, what would you like sharing, blah blah. And they're like, oh yeah, sure. So I feel like it'd be nice. I feel like in that situation, you could have definitely asked anything, especially after being nine days silent with these people.
Yeah, you're
They would
probably
be
right.
very reciprocated,
Yeah.
to hearing in.
That's a really good lesson, man. Cause yeah, I need that kind of understanding of the world a bit more, that you can just kind of speak to people and have them be reciprocal. That's a great
Yeah.
situation and example.
No, definitely. Yeah, I would suggest that people try it out there a little bit more because it's
Yeah,
nice. Like I
motherfuckers
feel like I
listening,
would
try
like
that. Sauna talks.
yes, yeah. I don't know, yeah, or anywhere else. But sauna is just a little bit more of a comfortable space because
Yeah.
usually it's just like I don't know why it's just like two or three people, and sometimes if there's another person, they'll join in. So
Yeah, no
like it's just a
shit, no
nice little
shit.
thing. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And yeah, you'll hear a lot of really, really interesting things and stories. Maybe that inspire you, or perhaps some of
Yeah.
your music. You never know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
uh,
no shit.
but my next question is, what was the hardest part of the experience?
I would say being away from pardon me. Being away from Anya was probably it. And I'd kind of underestimated how much I would miss her, or how much I depend on her for kind of like, I don't know, just having that kind of seeing someone see you. I feel almost like I would disappear if I didn't have someone who could like really see me. Because if I'm not seen, I would just not exist. Jeez, that's a bit of an insight. I don't know what that means.
So in regards to like, well, I mean, you just said like you're not 100% sure what it means, but maybe if I ask you this question, like,
Hmm.
do you think it's physically seeing you, or do you think it's more of
No, like
a
being
like actually like
seen,
because
like
Anya sees who you are
yeah,
more?
but like being seen, someone seeing what I'm about and like why I'm doing things. That type of being seen, because I don't feel like many people like. I don't even think like my mum or like yeah, my mum's pretty fucking close to me, and I don't even think like I can explain things like that to her. I feel like Anya gets it, but other than that, is a big difference between how anyone else understands it.
So why do you think, for example, like Anya's able to see that, and how do you know that she sees it the same way? Is it the way that she explains it back to you, or is it
Yeah.
in what regard?
Um, it is well, a lot of it. How she manages to, I don't know. I guess it's just a lot of tolerance. But she's probably just like the same type of person where she's on the similar journey. Like you, I find I relate to people who end up being on similar journeys, in the sense that they're looking for something beyond themselves because they're not fulfilled within themselves. And so there's that, and also just like tremendous time, like spending time and allowing shit to allowing myself to be open, because that takes time, but eventually doing that and then having someone be receptive to that in the extent that they can, what you said, like being able to kind of say it back to you in their own words, really kind of allows you to see like, okay, they do get it, you know what I mean?
Definitely,
Mm.
definitely. Uh, what was the best? Now that we talked about the hardest part of the experience, what was the best part of the experience, or the best moment?
Oh, all right. So
You got one?
yeah, yeah. I so all right, so to premise the thing is again as well, I hadn't completely premised it. So I was, when I went there, I was still like I was aiming to like cut down on weed before I went, so it wouldn't be such a fucking like smack in the face. But I was struggling so much, and in fact I was smoking more weed than ever going into it, because I was like scared. I was getting scared the couple of days beforehand, and I had like a fight with Anya because like things weren't going how I was planning them to, like before I was leaving, and it was just a not a good space. So I was smoking much more, and I was like, the day of going, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to cope like going through this if I don't have weed. And so I ended up like rolling pretty much a joint to have each day at lunch, to make sure that I could fucking survive, as well as like eat food and stuff like that. And so on the fourth, it was like the day immediately after I came back, after having a break, after like freaking out. I hadn't smoked the whole day because I'd been only having it like that on that one, like trying to eat the food. And I ate this food and it was just so fucking like, I don't know, it was like I hadn't eaten like this is the moment I'm trying to explain it, and it seems like silly now almost, but it was literally this fucking like vegetarian curry and this rice, man, that like I put it in my mouth and I was like, just spent like 30 seconds just like eating this one piece of food, and I was like, and I'd only had like, compared to how much weed I usually smoke, again, you know, like I'd had like a few puffs of a joint, and I was like, I was feeling like I was eating like God's nectar type of thing. So I was kind of like, and after that I went up to well, I'd been listening to this not I'd been listening, Anya had been listening to this thing by Ram Dass, something about like, you know, Ram Dass? He's a spiritual talker. He died some years ago, but he maybe only a couple of years ago. But what his dying kind of like mantra was, I am loving awareness, like just saying that to himself as he was dying. And I remember that like coming up in my mind as I had to take the food bowl back after I'd finished eating. So I just had this like beautiful curry that like blew my mind, and I was walking back to the fucking area to clean the food, like to clean the plates and shit. And I was like thinking to myself in my head like, I am loving awareness. And it sounds like so like fucking like loopy almost now, but I was literally like walking through the fucking thing, and like tears were starting to come down my face, because I felt like so much gratitude for the food I'd just eaten, and the fact that it was like given to me for free, and like all these beautiful people around me like doing shit like for us, like the monks and everything. And at that moment I was starting to like tear up, and I just put my fucking plate in the thing for them to clean. The head monk dude like walked into the fucking the fucking food eatery hall, and he was doing this chanting like thankful chanting to the people who brought the food. And I was literally just like fucking crying my eyes, listening to this head fucking monk who's been inspiring me all week, doing chanting right in front of me, and it legit, like I felt like I was fucking I don't know, like I don't know what it usually like for me to just openly cry in front of strangers. Like I can't imagine myself ever doing that. But I was literally like felt so much gratitude and just like happiness in this moment that I was just crying, but like laughing and smiling and just like in front of all these cunts. Like, yeah, it was a weird moment, but it was just like a lot of like the thing I realized afterwards, after writing it down, was just like I felt just like immensely grateful for where I was, as well as just like not wanting anything. Like I had no want for anything in that moment. And literally right after that, I had like the best meditation of the whole retreat. I went into the kind of I can't think of the word, the fucking hall, the meditation hall, straight after that, and I had like a 3-hour meditation, which is literally the longest meditation I've ever had in my life, you know. I've maybe meditated like 1.5, 2 hours, but because I felt so not wanting anything in that moment, I could just sit there for 3 hours and I just felt so fulfilled, you know. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't feel pain. Yeah, it was a, I don't know what to explain it as, but it was definitely a moment that I remember.
Yeah, I remember one of your lives. I can't recall exactly which one it was, but it was through Instagram. And you specifically said, it's like, I feel like crying right now, but I just can't.
Yeah,
or like,
I remember that
I don't
one.
know if
Yeah.
yeah. So in a way, that's a testimony to prove that
Exactly.
moving forward did happen, at least to some extent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like, yeah,
Why?
I don't know what it was internally, hey, but it was definitely some shift.
Yeah. It's so like the first of all, talking about like the tears. So it was almost like tears of joy.
Yeah,
more than
it was literally, I
any-
would think of that phrase in my head, like that I'm just loving awareness, like just being grateful for where I am, and it would be like this kind of like throb up my neck, up to like the top of my brain, and like it would make this kind of heat behind my eyes, and it would just like not like sobbing, crying, but just like can't hold like they're just coming out for some reason. It was really weird.
how did that experience, like just experiencing that, because it seems like a very surreal experience.
Yeah.
How do you feel like it affected you, like in the future? You know, like do you feel like, is that something you want to seek again, or do you feel like you look at crying differently now?
It was definitely something I would want to seek again, in the sense that like that, yeah, that was yeah. Actually, maybe that's, I've been thinking since I gotten back, like I've been having this kind of nagging feeling as though I've kind of I had reached some space while I was away, very briefly, and now that I'm continuing to live, like let me explain this better, because it's a hard to explain thing, but it's important. So like I'd been living my life with a certain level of intensity of thought, I guess, like thinking about things, worrying about things, anxiety. And that was kind of always happening. But then very briefly, which very possibly could have been this moment that I was talking about now, which I hadn't yet connected. Like in that moment, those few hours, like I'd touched this space where, as I said, like I didn't want anything. I just felt grateful, and I was just like complete almost. Like I felt complete for the first time, very briefly, but obviously it doesn't last. Like whatever led me to be in that space kind of fell away eventually, and I was back in how I usually was. But I kind of have this almost like a yearning to get back to that space ever since I've came back. Hey.
Well, I feel like the important thing is that now you know that realm exists.
Yeah.
So like I think you believed it before, but the good thing is that now you know it exists, which means that it can be attained on a longer scale. Like almost like if, like, for example, metaphorically, like if you were a tree, like you rooted yourself into that type of soil for a little bit, and then now like one day you'll be able to really root yourself down, instead of like being shifted by like life's trials and tribulations and worries. And you'll be able to actually stick there. But that's if you got nothing else from that, at least you know that moment and that feeling can exist on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis.
Yeah, man. Holy shit. Like the way you put that was fucking perfect. Like that's how I feel like I needed to be able to express it. Like I feel like I have touched some space where like if I can root myself in that space, then I can exist from there, and that can like I can carry that through life rather than it just being a memory. Yeah.
And one other thing, when you're like in that type of mentality of like rooted down, when you were in that moment,
Mm.
would the word that comes to mind, was it that you were experiencing what it means to be content with what you have?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was definitely content in it. Like yeah, there was no longing for anything, so I think that would be content. Yeah. Mm.
That's interesting. So
Yeah, it is
it was
interesting.
like we're good with what you had instead of yearning to need more.
Yeah, which, as I've said, is like a part of the problem mind that I keep getting into. It's like that mind that wants to look into the future and be like, oh, I want to achieve these things. We want to have that, want to have that. And it like stops me from ever resting. And it was like I had rest very briefly. And it was like intoxicating that I want more of it.
Mm.
Yeah, legit. Just that
So
rest and contentedness. So powerful somehow. Seems so benign, really, but yeah.
mm, well, it seems like if anything, maybe before you were kind of living a slight in a daze from
Yeah.
like the day to day,
Yeah, I
and then
was,
you kind
bro.
of like switched it.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. On the experience, Raz, throughout the experience, emotionally or spirit, like did the experience emotionally or spiritually affect you? If so, how? You spoke a little bit about the spiritually, but you can dive deeper into that, and then also adding in the emotionally.
Okay. Um, let's have a little pause just to make sure this is still recording, and then I'll start it up before I answer that one, alright?
Okay.